Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds!
I'm saying, now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with the Yang King.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Aarika, Samone Rhodes, welcome to the Nerds for Humanity channel. So great to get you on the show. I feel like I know you. I've been following you on Twitter for a while now.
Well, we're like hardcore Yang Andrew Yang supporters, so it would be weird if we weren't following each other. But I'm a huge fan of your show and what you do, the data that you bring. You're amazing. You've been like incredibly influential in Andrew's campaign.
Well, thank you for saying that. And as you have as well, you have a lot of stuff going on in your life these days. I mean, I knew when we set up this interview that you and I could talk about, you know, the campaign and Humanity Forward, and then of course the Black Lives Matter stuff came up big time on everybody's radar. And then did I just see that you're throwing your hat in the ring? You running for U.S. Congress?
I threw it in there. Yes, I threw it in there. I actually filed after George Floyd died. That's when I filed. So like I was already like, you know, contemplating wanting to do it, deciding if I want to leave the classroom officially. And then when I saw that video, I filed. It was like, it's a no-brainer. We need change. We need justice. We need equality. And if we don't have representation that's advocating for that, then you know what? I'll do it. And so my dad always actually says, you know, we can whine and complain about other people not doing this. So just go do it yourself. Aarika, you go be the leader. And so that's what I did. And I'm really excited about it, actually.
I love it. Well, we're definitely going to get to that. Before we go there, could you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, I know your dad plays an important role in your life. Could you tell us about, like, you know, what growing up as Aarika Samone Rhodes was like, and, you know, where you grew up and what your early life was like?
Tom, you want to start with tears?
Keep it real.
My dad is the most influential he's the most influential person in my life. Like when I tell you, I couldn't have asked for a better role model. Like I just couldn't. He's the kind of dad that like never misses anything. He's actually watching right now. You know, he showed up to all of my activities.
What's his name?
Johnny Rhodes. He was a former UFC fighter, actually.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Johnny Rhodes in the house. Very cool.
Johnny Rhodes in the house. So I had very involved parents, and, you know, my parents always raised me to just be ambitious, a go-getter, just make it happen. And, you know, I kind of grew up at a time where, you know, we were like just getting computers, right? Do you remember like floppy disks and technology wave, you know? So I was like right at that. I was like really, I was at that time where I was just getting really into like computers and math and science. So my parents obviously nurtured that. And now I'm obviously a math and science teacher, but I had a great childhood, a lot of great experiences, amazing parents. And so I would say I had a great childhood.
What was mom like?
My mom is actually one of the most creative people I know. She's actually Asian, so I'm biracial. My mom's half Asian, half German, and she speaks German fluently. And my mom is, yes, I do too. I kind of wish that she would have taught my brother and I German. She didn't, but you know. But my mom is the kind of person who isn't afraid to fail. She's like, I have a dream, I'm gonna go chase it. And she modeled that literally my whole life. And she is one of the nicest, most thoughtful people ever. Like if you know Diana, they'll always say, "Oh, your mom, she'll give the shirt off her back." So she's very like tender-hearted, caring and giving. And she's actually like what keeps our family together, to be honest. Like she always makes sure everyone else is good. So I have a great mother.
Wow. You know, you seem super blessed to have such great parents. Did you have siblings as well?
Yeah, I have a brother. He's a lot older than I am. And, you know, he's really smart and he played the saxophone growing up. He's very musical. He's just, you know, very strong-willed. You know, he's protective in his own way over me a little bit, but you know, as siblings, you know, we definitely bicker.
Oh, I know all about that. I know all about that. I've had my oldest brother on the show a few times, and we have the same parents, but we just have, you know, different ways of looking at things. Well,
Yeah.
where in America did you grow up?
So I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and now I currently live in Los Angeles.
Got it. And so, so you was teaching your first profession, or did you do other stuff before?
No. I actually moved out to LA to do, you know, acting and all that kind of stuff. And then I was doing a commercial, ironically, and the lady was like, "Oh, I'm here to be your tutor." And I was like, "What? I'm like 20 years old. Like, what? I don't need a tutor." But I was like, "How do you get into something like that?" And, you know, and like, what's that look like? Because I was thinking that could be a really dope thing in between, you know, acting gigs or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I literally changed my major, Tom. And then they put you into, like, you have to do observation hours when you're a liberal studies major. I went into a 5th grade classroom and the kids couldn't read. They were literally reading at a 2nd to 3rd grade reading level. And I was like, this is an injustice. And I can make sure that these kids read. So that's how I went into education after being in that class.
Yeah. And I mean, that is a really hard job. I did some part-time teaching like a long time ago. And I always felt like teaching, like even like a 1-hour class felt like 4 hours of normal work. What was it like for you?
Oh, to me, time flies because we have fun in my classroom. It's always hands-on. We're on a field trip. We have guest speakers, projects. I'm the kind of teacher, like if you yawn, I get offended. I'm like, oh my God, we're bored. So I'll like stand on the table and I'll teach in all kinds of ways. But I really try to create a fun, engaging, rigorous classroom where kids are inspired to learn. You know, like I hate paper pencil. I hate lecture style. Like, I don't even know anyone that's ever said, "Oh, I was inspired by that teacher that lectured." You know, like I've never met anyone that loves that. But so I feel like with my teaching style, which is something that I love about Andrew, about making sure teachers have resources and can do field trips and teaching financial literacy. I think that is what makes the classroom fun and meaningful, when you can have real world connections and just be inspired. Like, who doesn't want to be inspired, you know, when they're doing something?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think your classes sound way better than my classes were.
Well, how are your kids' classes? Like, do they come home and feel like, "Oh my God, Dad, like, guess what I just did today in school"?
No, I wish they were more like that. Sometimes they do. Right now, they give me a lot of 1-word answers. Like, I was like, "Hey, so did you learn anything?" "Yeah." "What did you learn?" "I don't know." So I don't know. I have to find a way to. They're very interested right now. Actually, this summer I've been giving them an assignment around because we're moving back to the States next month, actually, and so I wanted to give them something to look forward to. And I said, well, you know, when we go back, you can have a welcome back to America present. And so they asked to get hamsters. And so lately I've been having them do a lot of research on the different species and, you know, where they are in their natural setting and their care. And then also some math with like budgeting.
so they can figure out like what items to buy and research like the pros and cons. So I agree with you. I think that interactive kind of learning does a lot better than like just straight up worksheets and,
And
problem sets.
like, I love that you're getting involved. I think that's what all parents should do, to be honest. But the house is a way to engage kids, like off of like video games and stuff. Like, I went to my friend's house the other day, and I was with his two kids, and we literally went outside just looking for worms. Like, that's what we did. And then we like talked about their anatomy. And so I feel like, oh, and then actually I asked, I was like, yo, Jonathan, do you have eggs in your fridge? And maybe we could walk on eggs. Like, there's all kinds of things you could do in the household to make kids like excited. Neil deGrasse Tyson often talks about that in education, that parents have a responsibility to allow kids to investigate and explore.
I think
it's good that you're getting invested.
Yeah, no, I find that they lean in way more, and it allows them to be creative, and so hopefully some of that'll stick with them when they get out in the world. I feel a little bad that I mean, on the one hand, if you run and you win, of course that's amazing, but I could just feel the energy that you're probably a really great teacher, and so we might lose a great teacher. I mean, what's your take on kind of the education system these days? Like, what do you think generally, how are we doing, and where do you think we need to be better?
Yeah, I feel like COVID kind of exposed the inequalities in our education system, because you had kids that were not able to transition to online remote learning because they just don't have the resources or the internet. So it kind of shows that the have and the have-nots. And I personally feel like we're failing. We do not advocate for education enough, in my opinion, but yet we want kids to be able to vote. We want them to understand all these things, yet we're not investing in a substantive, thought-provoking curriculum. We're teaching kids to just take a test. And I think that's going to be the downfall of our future. Like, I personally don't take tests necessarily in my daily life, right? Like, I don't memorize something and then do it and then forget about it. That's not how we function as humans, right? So we have to teach people how to think, how to problem solve, how to apply knowledge. They say wisdom is the application of knowledge and experience. But if we're not combining those two elements, how are kids going to be wise? And that's what we obviously ended up with, Trump, right? Because people are just ill-informed about him, but he's our president. So I feel like we're failing in education, but I'm also hopeful about education, because I think now that we know what's not working, we can find solutions to fix it. And that's making sure that kids have technology, resources, updating our curriculum, making sure we're teaching financial literacy, promoting math and science and STEM education, making sure that kids are reading at the reading level. All those things are essential. And so we need to just make sure that that's happening. And I'm hoping that when I'm elected, I'll be on the education committee, because that's something I definitely want to fight for.
Speaking of education and Trump, I wonder, do you think he got a good education? I feel like he's not a lifelong learner.
No, he's not.
Right?
He's not. No, he's not. I feel like that's the problem with everything being handed to you and never having to really work for anything. And again, going back to lecture style, like that, not having that intrinsic motivation. You just go, you just get it done, you cross it off onto the next thing to get done. And I think that's not just unique to Trump. I think that's unique to several people, right? So I feel like there's also an element when we think of education, we have to think about the home environment. Well, I wonder what his home environment was like as well, and how that influenced his decision-making and thought process. Because it's, as teachers, like, we do kind of get labeled as we are supposed to have all these problems, but I like to think of it as a relationship with parents, because it takes a village to raise a kid, to make sure that a kid can succeed. And so I do wonder, like, how involved Trump's parents were and
Mm.
his upbringing was really like, you know? If you've never walked in someone else's shoes, you've never been exposed to a different way of living, would you know anything differently? You know?
May not. Yeah, I mean, my understanding is, what I've read is that he looked up to his brother, and he had a kind of unique relationship with his father. It seemed like he really wanted to live up to, I guess, the kind of expectations that his father had. And then he went to military school. Then he spent a couple years at Fordham, and then a couple years studying finance at Wharton. So I mean, he had a lot of education, clock hours. But what I find striking is he doesn't seem to be curious. Like, he doesn't seem to want to learn new things. It's very much he goes with his intuition, and doesn't like to read briefing papers, things like that.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like he's just like checking it off. It's not about other people. You
Yeah.
know, it's like he's not caring about he's not functioning like he's out for the better, like to better the lives of other people and other individuals. And he's not a very thoughtful person. He doesn't reflect. Like, I don't have a lot of time. I'm busy. He tweets more than I do, and he's the president of the United States,
Yeah.
right? So I put that in, like, think about that. He tweets more than you and I combined, probably, right?
Yeah.
So what are his motives? Like, is he really trying to move us forward? What's the end game for him? Like, we know Andrew, his end game is to end poverty, and so everything that he does is thoughtful, intentional, and to do that. Trump doesn't maneuver like that. So when we think of education, that's why I keep going back to like guiding kids to figure out what their purpose is and think beyond themselves. Like, I work in an independent school, so I have a lot of kids that are of privilege, right? So my goal is to expose them to worlds outside of their bubble. Like, we did a lesson on incarceration rates. We did math behind the census. We looked at income inequality in different congressional districts all throughout California. And then we compared and contrast different districts, and why does this district have this and why does that district have that, And so going back to Trump and his education, I mean, look at the college that he started, Trump University. I mean, just the intention of his university lets you know that he does not care about education.
Yeah. I was talking to my son the other day. He was sharing how he got bullied. I don't know, when we first moved to Switzerland and he went to a new school. And I was telling him, a lot of times these bullies, you kind of almost have to feel bad for them.
Yeah.
Because they really don't feel good about themselves. And they're trying to kind of fill this gap by putting other people down to kind of make themselves feel better. I'm not saying, it's right that they were bullying you, but just think about it, like, just understand everybody's human and they have their own stuff. And I used to really find Trump abhorrent. Now I kind of feel a little bit sad for him because clearly he has some major issues that he just is unable to empathize. He's unable to ever kind of reconsider things. And that has to come from weakness. That has to come from some insecurity.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I don't know what he's like in his 70s. Like, if you haven't found your center by then, like, what kind of tough, just strange kind of imbalance that he must have, but let's talk a little bit about your run, Aarika. Like, that's a fairly recent decision. You mentioned it, like the Floyd killing was a kind of, a key moment for you. Tell me a little bit about like when you decided to do it. Was it like an instant thing, or was it more like, maybe I should, and then you did a bunch of research, or was it like, I have to do this? It was like a moment.
So let's walk it back just a little bit. So I've never been like politically active before until I saw Andrew Yang on The Breakfast Club. And then ended up at the rally. I was like, oh my God, I love his energy. I love his message. I researched him. Then I went, obviously, was a hardcore canvasser. Like I was like night and day before and after work, like in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, like just actively trying to get every person I can to just vote for this guy. And when he suspended, I really was devastated. Even Karen Hunter shot me an email. She's like, I'm sure you're so sad right now because he suspended, because I just believe in him so much.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'll just go back to just like teaching and stuff. And then he obviously dropped Humanity Forward. And then you can't unmeet people, right? So I've met literally hundreds of people. And there's a common theme amongst all these people that you meet. And that's, they just want relief. They just want to be able to enjoy their life. They just want peace of mind. And I think for me, if you know me, you know I hate car repairs. I hate unexpected car repairs because they're always expensive. And so when I get one, it's like I get all this anxiety. So for me, like UBI makes sense. And that's a lot of like stories that I kept hearing are like, people have this bill, this medical bill. And so UBI is such a game changer for our economy, for people, and for humanity. So I have to put this in context. Then what ended up happening was someone said, Aarika, you should really consider running for Congress. And I really thought about it. And then we saw COVID happen. You see the inequalities with the kids in schools. Then George Floyd dies. I actually had a meeting with Andrew with about 8 or 9 other people. And when they kind of hinted that I was thinking about running, he got really excited. And I was like, oh my God, he like believes in me. Like his eyes lit up. And I was like, well, maybe I can do this. And then when George Floyd was murdered, I filed. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And a funny story, Tom, I called my dad and I was like a little bit discouraged. I was like, I don't know, Dad, should I do this? He goes, Aarika, remember who the fuck you are. You could do this. And I was like, so I went ahead and I was like, I'm doing it. And we are so excited. I'm working with amazing people, and we are going to have the best ground game you've ever seen. It is pounding pavement all the way. So that's why I decided to run, and I'm excited about it.
So tell me about this race. I mean, a lot of people from Yang Gang who decided to run, started their campaigns earlier. So this feels like it's coming in pretty hot. And I'm curious about
2 years from now. I'm running for 2022.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. So you're totally for the long game.
Oh, the long game, because we have to win. I'm not running to lose. I'm running to win.
I like it.
So that's why I'm starting now, because it will give me, I'm already plugged into my community, as most people already know, but I'm running to win this. And I'm going to do every single thing I can to make this happen, because we definitely need change. That's what's up.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So you're starting 2 years out. That's fantastic. You're not playing around. I love it.
No.
So what, like, I'm guessing, is UBI your number one issue, or are there other issues that you feel stronger or equally strong about?
Right. So when I feel like when you think of a congressional race, you have to know what matters to your district. And the number one issue in my district is homelessness. Like right now, we're seeing a major incline, and the 8,000 people that are currently experiencing homelessness in my district, 2,000 of them are children. So that is a pressing issue, and obviously, universal basic income does help solve that. But for me, it's homelessness, education, the environment, and protecting and supporting small businesses. So those are like the big things. And obviously UBI fixes all those, are like, that's like the umbrella, right? And then those are the everything underneath the umbrella. So that's what's important to people in my district. And that's what I'm fighting for. And obviously coupled with that is social justice and equality. Now, Tom, this is what I'm pumped about too with my race, is that when I went canvass, or when I would peacefully protesting when George Floyd died in my district, people were really supportive and honking and excited about it, all in like every community, right? And I would actually, if I win, I would be the first woman of color to represent my district. So it actually has potential to be a historic race. We've never had a woman, we've never had a Black male or female representing this district. So because people care about equality and equity, I think it's winnable.
I love it. I have to call out that Katie Cool Lady is very keen on seeing your pretty face on a cookie. And thank you I gotta thank Katie for the super chat. I've been waiting to use this. I got this Swiss cowbell from my team because I'm moving from here, back to the States, and they gave me this. So thank you, Kate. But my sense from just glancing at this chat is there are a lot of fired up people eager to help you get elected, Aarika. Tell me what's the game plan like? So you've got 2 years. Mm-hmm. Are you going to do it full time, or are you going to do it for the next 2 years, 100% running for office?
Absolutely. So I got consent with I have the support of my school that I can move forward with this. And that was like another piece too. And we have been working this all out, very strategic. We're going to run a grounds game where it's going to be all about people powering this campaign, small dollar donations. And we're actually going to be vlogging the whole journey so people can see what we're doing. So I launched, obviously, yesterday on Juneteenth, I launched my YouTube channel. And so I'll be basically vlogging the whole journey so people can kind of see the evolution of the campaign. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because in the last 48 hours, a lot of former Obama staffers have actually been reaching out to me. So that's really promising. And so I feel like, man, people must see some potential. And so I've gotten a few Obama staffers that are interested. And obviously there's some people within the Yang campaign that are, obviously helping support. I'm obviously meeting with Andrew every 5 to 6 weeks to talk about policies that are going to uplift communities of color. So we are running a race to win. And I'm thrilled about it. We're gonna do a big launch on Monday, and just go. We have no waiting, no half-assing. It is 100%. We're gonna make it happen. The way I went for Andrew, it's like that times 20.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. And so what have the conversations been like with Andrew? You mentioned that when you were contemplating it, or someone alluded to it, he seemed very supportive. Mm-hmm. What's he said now that you've kind of made the decision to go for it?
Right. So when we spoke, it was just really about, when the group of us met, it was really about how we can uplift communities of color and policies that would, help stimulate Black wealth and allow, Black businesses to thrive and things of that nature. But when I dropped it, he was really, really excited about it. And then he actually tweeted at me saying, I'm really excited about it. So have we had a one-on-one conversation yet? No. Do I think it's going to happen? Of course.
Yeah.
I really do.
I'm excited. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if you get to Congress, or when you get to Congress,
yes, manifest.
And then when you get to Congress, and then when we get Andrew in the White House, I don't know, maybe you could help him out. You guys could be a team and be part of like a coalition of some sort.
That was part of the reason why I was toying with it, because I know he's running in 2024. It's not a secret. And so that is how we move forward. That's how he's going to need people that are going to back his ideas and back his policies. And so that is why, I threw my hat in, because
I love it.
He's going to win. I just know he's going to win in 2024. I can feel it in my soul.
I do too. Let me just give a quick shout out to some super chat folks here. Let's see. Soldier 1 says that I need to ring the meditation bell to give you some good luck. So
Yes.
let me bring out my meditation bell. Here we go. Here we go. There you go. And who else? There was someone. Oh, Ward Smith. Thank you for your support of the Nerd Channel. My God, it's like turning into a little farm over here. So, Aarika, tell me a little bit about the team that you're putting together and like the kind of help that you want from people at this stage in the game.
So the people that are working really closely with me, it's a very diverse team. So it's different ethnicities, different ages. And so I'm really excited about that. I feel like a team, a staff should reflect our country and reflect the district. So that was one of my biggest things. And I think we are thinking of it as innovative, cutting edge, we're not going the traditional route. Obviously, we need to raise a lot of money because Brad Sherman has $2.5 million, but we can outwork him. I have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, so that doesn't intimidate me. I know that that the money factor is important, but we're playing a smart game. Like, for example, to get on the ballot, you need 2,000. We want 10,000. We want to show that this is powered by the people and that people want change. They want, someone that's innovative, young, an advocate, will speak up, and not just in Washington as a career politician just to preserve their seat, right? People want someone that's going to hear them. And so my campaign slogan is actually a voice for you. And so I'm hoping that, I will be able to take the voices of everyone that I come across and highlight them. That's actually what our Instagram is going to be dedicated to, is the voices of the Valley, and making sure that people that we meet that we highlight their stories to kind of underscore why universal basic income is essential. And we're going to be tech driven. A guy actually reached out to me. He's going to do like a virtual, I guess he wants to do like a virtual thing for my website. So even if I'm not, so basically it's like a robotic Aarika talking about my policies. So that'll be kind of cool if we can get that going. But to answer your question, our plan is to just be like chess, not checkers. And we've been really strategizing in really creative ways to do that.
When is the website going up, and when's the donate link going up?
Monday.
I'm ready to support it.
On Monday, we're launching a 72-hour digital fundraiser. And basically, we're going to try to hit our very first goal. It is so important that we hit this goal. And then I've already secured 20 independent Zoom fundraisers with some really cool, potentially big donors, which I'm so excited about. And we just have, our goal is to do 55 of them just in July to jumpstart this campaign and secure all the things that we need. And so we're like halfway there of getting our July Zoom fundraisers going. So July is a month to bring in a lot of money, a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of people from my district that's already Yang Gang have been reaching out to me in like crazy amounts on Twitter. Like, I feel bad because I can't respond to everyone. People just wanting to just volunteer and donate and just contribute. And so I feel like there's already the energy there. I just feel it.
No, I can feel it. I feel it too. Shit, I'm ready. I was like looking for your website. Like, I've got my credit card out.
Have it ready on Monday.
what's the domain going to be, or is that to be announced?
It's going to be Aarika for Congress.
AarikaForCongress.com. All right, great. So I'm sure we'll put a link to this in the replay so people can find the site when it's up. So tell me about what are you most concerned about with this run? It's probably not going to be all, roses and a clear path. Like, what are you concerned about? Where do you need to strengthen your team or your skill set to make sure that you're going to go all the way?
To be honest, I've already made this personal commitment to me that even though I am going on this endeavor and I'm going to pursue this, the most important thing is that it's actually equally important is that my students, while they're in my classroom, their education's not compromised. So that to make sure that they are, you know, getting the best education that they deserve. But in regards to my race, the things that I think could go wrong is not really for me, but for Brad Sherman. And I think if he underestimates me, that's going to be his downfall. Because again, I'm running to win. I'm not making these major sacrifices to lose. And my dad, my parents did not raise me to go in anything half-assed. So we're always thinking about from every different perspective, every different angle, just trying to be ahead of things. And ironically, we weren't even going to announce this until January. Someone saw that I filed and she tweeted it out. And she happens to have a huge platform and she's in my district, so it's all good. And so we didn't even know that we were even launching right now. We were just like, okay, we're going for it, but we were prepared. And so I feel like that's to me was like kind of like calming, is like even when there was like something that was thrown at us that we were not ready for, we were still prepared. And that is how we're going to win. And so if anything, it's going to be on Brad Sherman if he underestimates this girl, because we're winning.
And so has he been representing the district for a long time? And does he typically have a lot of challengers, or what's
no. So he's been here for 22 years. He doesn't typically have a lot of challengers. He usually has the same voters. So, you know, people that are just familiar, the ones that come out and vote. So he tends to be, I'm like Jermaine Johnson, who I know, you know, I'm really close with. Like, I'm not into bashing him at all. I think he's been fine, right? Like, he's fair. Like, he votes okay, you know, he's fine, right? But that's not how we get change. And so I think when I talk to people in my district, they are kind of wanting a little bit more spice, a little bit more excitement. I feel like we need to expand our voter pool now. We have young people. We need to get them active and involved. And so I feel like it's just time to pass the torch. It's like what Jermaine said, a good leader knows when to pass the torch to someone else. And I'm ready to take that torch and get change.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I think it's
that means a lot because you speak truth, and I think you're like super smart and intelligent. And I know that if you felt kind of like, oh my God, this girl is all, oh no, I don't know about this one, I think you would probably kind of like say that.
I would. I mean, I certainly wouldn't say I'm super excited if I weren't. My sense is you've got great energy.
Thank you.
It's a very authentic, positive energy. It's not I'm trying to put on a show energy. I think being a teacher is super helpful, and you know, I think people respect that profession.
Yeah.
I also think having a multi-ethnic background is super cool. And I think the experience you had volunteering and working for the Yang 2020 kind of effort will also pay off.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm looking at this chat thing and people are so fired up. They are all excited. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, look, I show a chart or two, people like it, but it's not the same.
No, it makes me happy. I think when I think of the House of Representatives, I feel like it's about time that people are represented. I'm not here to be polished politician. I'm here to be myself. I'm here to just fight for what I believe in and fight for what other people believe in. And the one thing that was beautiful about being in New Hampshire in Trump country is that I can come with my views and I was still able to find common ground with people that support Trump. You know what I mean? We can get behind some things, and that's what frustrates me the most, I feel like, is why can't we just find common ground on some issue? Like, does it make sense for bills to just be collecting dust on a desk? You know, and like even in my classroom, my kids are able to compromise, you know, and I feel like that's a strength of mine is I can put my pride aside. I can find common ground with people. I think I'm likable enough. and I'm friendly enough. I'm not out to get anyone. I just want people to just be able to enjoy their family, be able to just, like, they would make me sad the other day. I was talking to a mom who was deeply affected. She was actually someone that I know really well. And she, she was completely impacted by COVID, and she has to pull her kid out of private school. And she's like, what sucks is, like, I don't even trust the public school system. Parents shouldn't have to make that choice. Parents should still feel like, if I send my kid to a public school, they're gonna get a quality education, And I said to her, I was like, well, do you think that if you and your husband both got universal basic income, that'd be a game changer? She's like, yes, I wouldn't be in the process of refinancing my house. So I think when you hear those stories, real people want people like me that are relatable and that can advocate for that. If you've been away from your constituents for 22 years, you don't have a great sense of the pulse of what people need and what they want, And I feel like that's why there should be term limits. Like, even for myself, I'm like, when I get elected, it is for Andrew's presidency. And then I'm going to let someone else have the opportunity and the privilege to represent our district, because we need term limits. That's a must. Like, we have to have that.
I totally agree. Let me ask you a little bit about the school stuff. I mean, as an independent school teacher, on the one hand, you've probably seen what a well-resourced, institution can do for kids.
Yep.
On the other hand, like, if you talk to like old school Democrats, they would say, well, anybody who puts their kids in the independent schools, undermining the public school. What's your take on that whole, and then there's the other argument, which is like, hey, people should be able to put their kids in whatever school they want. There should be vouchers. How do you think about education, public education, independent education?
Well, I've worked in both. I've worked in public and I've worked in private, and there's no comparison, right? So at a private school, obviously you're going to get more resources. Teachers are paid, lucratively. You're able to go on field trips, all these different things that you just can't do in a public school. So that's I understand both perspectives. I feel like with education, parents have the right to send their kid to a school that's going to serve them the best, whether it's special needs, whether it's, your child's gifted. Parents should have a choice to be able to make the decision what's best for their family and their child. Now, an argument I used to make all the time when I was canvassing for Andrew is a lot of independent schools give really good financial aid. Okay. So let's say we had universal basic income, and now a parent has a choice. They can apply for financial aid and send their kid to an independent school, which would then put pressure on the public schools to update their curriculum to make sure that the teachers have the same type of resources or whatnot. So now it's kind of like, now we have to, because you're going to lose money if your kids leave the public school sector. So I think that's something that we have to really be mindful of, is that universal basic income would help education in that realm. Now, in terms of public schools, there are amazing public school teachers that want to be able to do the things that they want to do and their ideas and execute them. They just don't have the funding, and no teacher should ever have to use their own money to buy resources. It's unacceptable. Like, there's all these like websites, like, Adopt a Classroom and all that stuff. That's unnecessary. We waste so much money in our prison systems. That money should be going to our schools. Let's prevent kids from being incarcerated. Let's invest in our future. I really, really feel that way. And so I think parents should have choice. And, UBI creates it in one way. And I feel like, the zoning and stuff can potentially change, because if you have a parent that's willing to drive, an extra 10 minutes to send their kid to a better school, then they should have the right to do that, because education is a right. It's not a luxury. Kids should be able to read. That's a non-negotiable.
So let me play devil's advocate with you.
Sure.
Some people will say, look, and anytime these families take their kids out of the public school system, especially if it's a struggling public school system, and they put them in these independent schools, not only is it potentially resulting in less resources to those public schools, but also, the families that are most kind of like leaned into the education, like we're losing their positive influence in the school that they're leaving. And then, the argument is that it becomes this kind of vicious circle, and you have all of this like flight.
But should parents be advocating for a quality education? Isn't that what administration's for? Like the people from the top, like superintendents make a lot of money. There's a lot of waste in education. And I feel like the administration should be making those decisions. They should be ensuring that whether a family leaves or not, that the school is still held to a very high standard. Education should not be compromised because a family or two leaves. I really feel that way. And also too, I feel like if our education was done right, a family wouldn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like if all of our schools were properly funded and our curriculum was updated and teachers were not asked to be parrots, they would be able to create engaging classrooms, and parents wouldn't feel the need to leave anyway. So I think that's where we have to fix just like how we're viewing education and what the classroom experience should look like. Like, put it like this. I'll put it like this. If I was a parent, the way I teach is this, I look at it like this.
Mm-hmm.
I run my classroom how I would want my kid to be in that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I would want like, if my kid was in this classroom, I would be really happy. Like, that's how I think of it when I'm designing curriculum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're funding our schools, we should have that same mindset. Like, would I send my kid to this school? Would I want my kid in this classroom? A lot of times parents are like, I want my kid in this teacher's classroom, but not this teacher's. We can't even get bad teachers out because of tenure. So we have this whole system that's a little bit funky, but I do feel like people are not advocating enough for education. But I do think that when I start to run and Andrew starts to run again, I think that education is going to be one of the biggest topics come 2024, and we're going to get the reform that we need.
I completely agree with you. I will say that you are advocating for things that the dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, many would say, whoa. We're talking about parents choosing to where their kids go to school. We're talking about potentially removing teachers who are not performing well. Those are almost like third rails in at least Democratic politics as long as I've been following it.
Yep.
And so number one, like yes, like I'm so glad you're an independent thinker and you're willing to just like do what you think is right. On the other hand, like, do you worry that folks are going to say, oh, she's for a Trojan horse UBI. She wants parents to put their kids in different schools. Do you feel like it'll be challenging to somehow, build an alliance with the old school Democrats?
If I was going to be an old school Democrat, then I shouldn't be running. I should just leave the incumbent and just go about my merry way. Right? Like it's not working. That's the problem. Excuse me. It's not working. And to me, that falls under insanity. We're going to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. The outcome should be that kids are going into sixth grade, reading at a sixth grade level. Kids are going into third grade, computing math at a third grade level. We need to make sure that we are fighting for what's right and not is what's just political, because that's why we're in this mess that we're in. And just so you know, the dynamite just completely widened the achievement gap when COVID happened. So you have kids that are sitting at home from March until all through summer, and when school starts back up, every school's different, that just never even had the opportunity to even learn. Right. So now we have another beast of problem of kids just being way below grade level. A lot of remediation is about to take place. And so if we're going to do the old school way, we're going to just keep it status quo, we're never going to get the change we need. And I'm here to get real change, not to do status quo, because it doesn't work at all. It doesn't. And everybody deserves a good education. And if that means that I have to stick my neck out to ensure that they get it, you know what? It's out there, because that's the right thing to do. That's the moral compass. You know, I feel like sometimes politicians, they lose their moral compass. You know, my dad always raised me like, seek perfection of character, try to be a good person, try to do the right thing. To me, when kids cannot read or compute math or don't have the opportunity to do science, that's criminal. That's taking away their future. Yeah. They have less opportunities that way. And we're seeing less and less kids go into vocational schooling or college because they just can't intellectually handle it. We have mental illness crisis. Kids are depressed. There's all these other things that we're screwing up right now that we need to fix. Like, one thing I love about my schools, we have 2 credentialed teachers in the classroom. So that means that we can work in small groups. That means we can do one-on-one, you know, if we need to. We have 2 people that can bring their expertise into the learning environment. We have a school psychologist. We need to make sure that we have nurses in our schools. You know, all these things, they're like, to me, they're like a no-brainer. And it would be weird not to get behind something like that. To me,
I applaud your courage and your willingness to challenge kind of the dogma. One thing that I'm curious about is whenever I look up the per capita spending on education in U.S. versus other countries, I'm always struck by how we spend more than most other countries on education. And I'm just kind of curious, like, why do you think we in the US, where we spend, you know, a significant percentage of dollars per student, you know, $10,000 a student in the primary and secondary education versus, let's say, you know, France or Japan that's spending $8,000, but you don't hear these cases of like Japanese kids like not having school supplies and the teacher having to spend their own money on it. Like, where is all of our money going if we're spending so much per year? Like, why do we, what's going on?
It goes to the admin. It doesn't trickle down to the kids. It doesn't. And that's the problem. The spending because school, for me, and unfortunately, not all schools, I want to be very clear. I don't think all schools are bad or anything like that. But there are some schools where it's not about the kids. It's about administration or having a label or their career. And I went into teaching because I want kids to be able to read and write and compute math, right? So that's where I said the moral compass. It's like, what are the incentives? Because I know a lot of public school teachers that are paying to run their classroom, and it's unacceptable. So they're definitely not seeing that. They don't even I don't even know, like I know what our classroom budget is at the beginning of the year. I don't think $200 or $300 for the year is enough to sustain a high functioning, engaging classroom. Do you?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't.
And that's what a lot of teachers get, is like a $200 to $300 budget to buy classroom resources.
Is it $200 to $300 per student?
No, for your classroom supplies.
Oh, for the whole class?
For the classroom, like for your classroom, for the supplies. Oh, and then parents are expected to go out and buy like the paper, pencil, crayons, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, yeah, no, that's only going to be $20 or $30 a month. That's not going to do it.
Yeah, like one lab for me to conduct the lab is like $300.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, I hope you do get on that education committee and you can, you know, propose some things that are going to be, let's say, not left or right, but forward.
And we haven't talked about college. This debt that kids are, you know, acquiring, you know, during their college years is horrible. We have to find a way that college is affordable and accessible for everyone. And we also have to acknowledge college is not for everyone. It's not. And so we need to inspire, encourage kids to go into trade schools. We have to, like, personally, when I think of some of the most influential people, they didn't even go to college. You know, so I think we have to train, like going back to Trump, right? Like lifelong learners and all that stuff. It's not just about ticking the box and just getting the degrees, right? It's about having a purpose and the tenacity and the mindset and the will to pursue what you're passionate about and then turn it into a paycheck. You know, my mom says, like, make your passion your paycheck. Then you'll be happy.
Yeah.
We have to re-inspire kids to not just like take a test and move on, but like really think about what they want for their life and have the guts to pursue it.
That also is going against the traditional dogma that the path to eliminating poverty and addressing racial inequality is increasing the college graduation rate for groups that are struggling. And I'm curious, you are advocating a lot of things like Andrew did that will, a lot of old schoolers are just gonna, they're gonna be opposed to it. And I don't want to be a naysayer because I completely support where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only way we're going to overcome that is to literally overcome it. Is that basically we're going to have to bring in new voters.
Yep.
And people who weren't particularly engaged in the past. How are you going to do that in a way that, Andrew unfortunately wasn't able to in Iowa and New Hampshire? What's going to be different about Aarika Samone Rhodes?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It is going to be challenging to get people to think differently and to think forwardly. And so one of the reasons why I started a YouTube channel to vlog my experience, to model what this can really look like. You know, like use my classroom experiences and show it that this is what engages kids and to excite people, because at least they know what they're investing in, right? So I'm going to be very transparent. Like, this is what I'm about, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is why it will work, and literally have that come through as I go through this whole journey. You know, I kind of did that. Paget actually inspired me to make the videos in the first place, right? And I'm just going to use this example because a lot of Yang Gang people watch this channel. So she was like, Aarika, you're really good at canvassing and getting people to be interested in Andrew. You should videotape that. Like, you should like put up videos. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll do it. And I modeled how I canvass. I modeled how I talk to people. I modeled how I was giving out Andrew's his literature. I would literally ask, like, can I see your phone really fast? And then I would literally like find his Joe Rogan podcast. Okay, watch this, you know? So again, for me, it's the same way, is modeling what works. And if people see it can work, then they can believe in it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like see, believe it. And so I want to show people what it's like. Unfortunately, I'm at a school that is successful at this. And I have the support of my school to model what good education looks like. And in terms of like, you know, getting new voters, I think that's going to be a strength of mine. You know, I'm only 34, you know, so I feel like I have the energy and the excitement to inspire other people to want to come out and vote. You know, I obviously it was for Andrew, but Bernie did that. He was able to inspire, you know, young people to back him. And I feel like that's going to be the same for me.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about voter turnout, and we should also talk about race relations and the African American community. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking up voter participation was that it was not a great turnout in 2016. And including the African American voter was not nearly as engaged in 16 as in 8 and 12.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, how do we turn that around? Because when half of the country that's eligible to vote, like, doesn't just stays home.
Yeah.
How, like, that's leaving so much voice out of the picture. Any thoughts on how to really? Why do you think people are not as active? It just not just volunteering, just going on election day and
vote.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really hard to present a vision that people can get excited about. And unless people can see your vision and how it can connect to their lives, people are not going to be as motivated. Like I told you, I vote. Like I've always been a voter. I think that's really important. But like I've never canvassed for anyone. But Aaron presented a vision that I was like inspired and can get behind it, which motivated me to go to primary states. Like who does that? You know, like, you have to be really excited to like go. I literally got off a trip with my mom that we had planned in the summer, 2 days, an international trip, 2 days. Then I was in Iowa, came back for 2 days. Then I was in New Hampshire, came back for 4 days. Then I was in Nevada. Like you do that when you're inspired. And I think we lack inspiration. Like Joe Biden doesn't necessarily inspire me. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'll vote for him. Okay. But I'm not gonna do it with like joy and excitement, you know. Like I was literally at the when I was voting the primaries, I was literally at the button. I like ball into tears, and the guy was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "You don't understand how much this hurts right now." So I think getting people excited about your vision is what's gonna get people to turn out and vote. Or the other alternative is that because of like George Floyd and all these just problems, like the problems are so bad that it's like, okay, enough is enough. So I'm going to go out and vote. Does it have to get worse before it can get better? Maybe we just have to hit rock bottom to get people to want to just like, you know what, I'll take a day and just go and do this.
One argument I've heard for folks who don't vote is that they just feel like it's pointless. Yeah. And the argument I've heard is, whatever, they're all crooks, nothing gets done, it's all spin, you know, it's the whole system is rotten. How do you convince those folks to come back and give it a shot again?
I think that people's like how they feel is valid to some degree, right? Because we don't see changes. Right, we keep voting the same people in, and you know, and we just don't see changes. So naturally, people are like, you know, we get the same old. So to you, what you were saying to me earlier, right? You're gonna go against all these like these old school democratic views, and you know, so when we vote, we have to vote for change. And I think to explain why voting is important, and to kind of just point out like you want change, but you have to be willing to do things that are going to get that change. And that starts with casting a vote. And if enough people can vote, we can get them out. We saw that with Remain. We saw that with AOC's run, right? So you have to get enough people to believe in your vision and to see that their vote can matter. We need more examples like that. You know, like one race that I wish would have worked out was the Stacey Abrams governor race. You know, because people were really believing in her, but voter suppression kind of hindered that win in a lot of ways. But what she did was one, she wrote a book, and then two, she was kind of like, we have to keep going. And so I think we have to encourage people to not give up and not lose faith, because like that's like saying right now, we've dealt with slavery, we've dealt with, you know, racism and all this kind of stuff, right? So let's just give up. Let's just give up, because we still are seeing Black men and women being victimized by and a victim of police brutality. So let's just give up. And what does that do?
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to really keep things in perspective. Unless we keep fighting, unless we're vocal, we're not going to get changed. So you have more of a chance to vote than you do not to vote for that change. We have more of a vote to speak up about police brutality than we do if we don't speak up about it. And I don't know how we got any change when we're quiet. We got to make some noise.
I agree. Let me share a chart here. This is the voter turnout in the U.S. compared to other countries. And let me just scroll here so you can see. So you see the percent of the voting age population, like in Belgium and Sweden, that participate in national elections is over 80%. And the world's greatest democracy is at 55%, just about half. We're behind so many other countries in terms of participation, and it just pains me. It pains me, even if you're a hardcore Trump supporter, but if you don't participate, if you don't vote, like I almost feel like in a way like, okay, well, I'm glad you're not voting for the other side. But on the other hand, as a believer in the system where the people's voices should be heard, it's so sad, especially when we're always rah America, like we're the greatest in the whole world, but then half of us don't participate.
Well, a couple of things that just came to mind that I probably should have said earlier, but ranked choice voting, so we can weed out people. That's one. Democracy dollars, so we can get the money out of politics.
Yeah.
Meghan McCain actually had a really good idea on The View that is a national holiday. That this is a date we all have to vote. So those are three things that we can also do instead of like always wanting to inspire, right? Or being, because I like to be inspired, but if we want to just get it done, those are three things that we could implement to ensure that we get the voter turnout that we need.
So let's talk about race relations in America right now. It seems pretty bad. I'm still overseas until next month, but watching it from afar, it seems there was a moment when Obama got elected that I think a lot of us thought, wow, like as a country, look how far we've come. And now I look at the state of affairs and I feel like we've gone backwards. Like it's actually gotten worse than before 2008. And I was tweeting something just yesterday about, Juneteenth and how when people say like, oh, it's not my generation's problem, like don't blame me for what happened, a century ago. I was trying to make the argument that there was real economic value to a century of free labor. And the Southern economy was one of the largest in the whole world. And the Northern textile economy was powered by very competitive cotton prices, which were competitive because of the labor costs. And then you have generations of people growing up who were deprived of access to education and, literacy and property ownership, all these things, and family and community. Of course, you see these discrepancies to this day. And someone was saying, oh, thanks a lot, Tom. Now my kid's going to feel guilty. Thanks for projecting white guilt on my kids. And I'm like, well, look, we're in this country. We're a prosperous country for a lot of reasons, but we need to own up.
Yes.
And we need to acknowledge, like, if you take away a whole community's access to education for multiple generations, are you surprised that the educational outcomes are different now? Like, what do you think? What would you think would happen?
Right.
So how do we close this gap? Because I do fundamentally believe that all people want to do the right thing, but somehow this country is being torn apart.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a part of it's our leadership. And I'm not just referring to Trump, like Mitch McConnell. There's a lot of people that do not project, they kind of whip this hate up. But I think it's beyond that. I think that, not to keep talking about school, but we do have to teach history correctly. That's one. We have to highlight that there were amazing leaders, Black leaders and, inventors and just show Black people from a different angle, or all ethnicities, to be honest. So I think that's one. I think that we need to change our laws. Like, I think that, like, if you just look at police brutality, right? Racial profiling has been a huge, problem for the Black community. Mass incarceration, our bail bond system. People can't even afford to get out of there if they're locked up. They cannot afford to even get bailed out. So we have that problem. We have, the whole war on drugs that completely destroyed, the progression of, the Black community specifically. There's just this, there's so many problems, and I don't think it's a one solution fix. You know, I think UBI is a great start. I really do. I think that I'm going to speak specifically to the Black community. So if we want Black wealth and we want Black people to be able to purchase homes and stuff, well, they can't start at zero. I think $1,000 a month is a great way to allow people to save so they can work towards that. You know, I think that's something that we really need, is to make sure that people of color have disposable income, and fix our schools. That's one thing that we need to do. But I think we need to change, like, how we perceive Black people. I think that's the first thing, is that we're not all criminals, or not all out to hurt people and stuff like that. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, the other thing about UBI is it gives people something to lose if they sort of have to make choices about, you know, staying on the right path or kind of straying. And right now, I was just talking to my kids about this because they're asking me about the riots and the looting and stuff. And I was saying, well, look, I'm totally against looting and arson. And I don't want to justify that behavior. But I will tell you this, like, I have a feeling a lot of the people that are participating in that activity, they have nothing else. They have nothing to lose. They're not giving up their chance to.
Did you see the video of the woman that says, you're lucky that we just want equality and not revenge? Did you see that video? It went viral.
No.
She literally said that. She's like, they should be lucky that we just want equality and not revenge. She's like, forget, who cares about the target? And then Ava, who is the producer and director of When They See Us, she said, if someone stealing shoes, though, can take away from the life that was lost, we have a real problem. So I'm not for looting. I've been peacefully protesting. I'm not for rioting. I don't think it helps solve the problem per se. I don't think it is, but I understand why people are doing it. And you're right. They have nothing to lose. And that's why we're that angry. But then again, I look at things like, well, we need to just run for office then, having more people of color that can speak to our experiences. So there's another, person of color at the table making these decisions. I want to say there was a famous photo where it was, oh my God, I don't know if it was like the only woman in the room with all white men, something, but she was at the table being an advocate for women's rights. So voting for people of color, not that I'm all for identity politics, because I'm not, but it's like, we have to have diversity. Like, I respected Alexis, the president of Reddit, who chose to step down so someone of color can kind of lead Reddit. I thought that was, Amy Klobuchar, not that I'm a fan of hers, but she just did the same thing. She pulled herself out of the running and said, let a woman of color. So I think that's starting, acknowledging that slavery happened. I think a lot of people, Black people especially, acknowledge that we were brought over here against our will and that we were poorly treated. So that's another thing too, is like there's this sense of lack of acknowledgement, but you can't change things unless you change it here. Reverend Wendy says that all the time, you have to change it in your heart. Like, people have to care enough to want that change. And so I don't know of a kid that's racist. I've never met one. I think it's tough. And so at the home level, what values are you instilling in your kid? What are you pouring into them? Because I just don't think that when you come out, you're just like, I don't like Black people. I don't like Hispanics. I don't like Asian people. Like, my aunt, she's in Kentucky. She lives in Kentucky, and she was saying that Black people are being spit on. It's like it's disgusting. So until we get, a lot of things fixed from the ground up, we're not going to see the changes that we want.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it is striking when you look at the president's cabinet, where, it's not the most diverse team, in American history. I mean, you've got Ben Carson and Elaine Chao in there. There's, there's like, what is it? 3, 6, 8 times. There's 24 faces here, and we can see 2 that are not white. But I mean, it's I think it does affect sort of clearly produces blind spots where there's just unconscious bias, and people that maybe, it's not like they're bad. They grew up with one perspective, never heard other points of view, kind of were ingrained in some dogma, and that's what you end up with, right?
What do you think are some good solutions for this? Because it is an important conversation to be had.
Oh man. I think the thing that I found, even for me growing up, to kind of complement or give me a broader perspective was just more positive interactions with people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a not super diverse part of New Jersey, like northern New Jersey suburbs. It was mostly white. And it wasn't until grad school, frankly, and college that I had, gone to class with Black students, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fantastic. I mean, my roommate was African American, and my section in grad school was, I don't know, must have been like 15-20% African American. So it was fantastic because I got to see people from a different background in a very different light than when I saw them in Hollywood or in media. And so I think part of the need to kind of heal this racial divide is having more of those interactions. Like it also happened on the other way. Like I worked for a few years with a guy from Tennessee, and he's like super, super Southerner, and his family were, I think, like plantation owners, literally. But unless you actually spend quality time with people, you can easily paint a caricature about them and about that whole kind of perspective. So one of the things that I think Andrew was supportive of, one of his proposals was kind of having exchange programs within the country. Like it's great to go to Sweden or, Hong Kong or whatever, but just go to Mississippi. Or if you're in Mississippi, like go to Boston or go to Maine, like these are all opportunities for us to realize how similar we are and how ultimately like we all want very similar things.
Yeah, I really believe that. And I love that idea of, visiting other parts of the country. But again, that goes to like funding, and now we have to invest in our kids and our education system. I feel for me, like being half Asian and half Black, I've gotten from both ends. Mm-hmm. And when it was happening, I was so disheartened by like the way Asians were being treated. It really, really upset me. And I guess for me, sometimes I wonder, like, why does someone's skin color matter that much? Like, because I try to look at the character of someone and to see someone poured gasoline on an Asian American, and it was just like seriously, like it was just so hard to watch. And then there was an Asian guy that got jumped by a group of people. It was just it's just like, we're better than that, and we have to make sure that we're teaching like character. Like our parents and teachers and role models, we're just modeling what good character looks like. And I think there's so many pockets that we like, opportunities that we kind of miss. And we have to probably be more intentional about not missing those moments where we can be more compassionate or model empathy when kids are, when they're really little, because they're absorbing everything. Mm-hmm. I like the idea. A teacher that I know, she really tries to bring in mystery speakers. And every month it's from a different background, like a different culture, religion, walk of life, whatever, every month to kind of just give that exposure, because her class is predominantly white. Mm-hmm. And so, like teachers, we have a power to be more intentional about, making sure that our classrooms are diverse. Bill Hodder, who was Andrew's driver, we had a really long conversation about that very thing and talking about skin tones. And that we're all a little different if you think about it. Even if you're white, your skin tone might not be the same exact skin tone. Mm-hmm. So I think that empathy is something that, and compassion is something that we need to model more, and just treat each other with respect day to day, and just not miss those opportunities. And when we get mad, not to go right to the race thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When people get mad, they go right to the physical, not to the action of the person that, or what they did to upset them. And I think that's we need to stop doing that.
I agree. Yeah, it's so easy to just lump people together under some common definition. And certainly that behavior is, I would argue, is being modeled right now in the Oval Office. And I know there's a lot of Trump voters who are in the Yang Gang, and of course, like, we want the same end game in terms of Andrew in the White House. But I gotta say, like, the example that Trump is setting, the way he talks about, different groups, and calling people thugs, and saying, like, we're not gonna be so nice, which is code for we're gonna rough you up. Like, it's just giving permission and setting. I mean, he's the president of the United States, the president of the greatest democracy in the history of the world, and he's exhibiting behavior that if a teacher did, I mean, can you imagine a teacher at your school, or they would be fired, right? And so, but anyway, that's why, even though I too am not like jumping over the moon for Joe Biden, I feel like the man that we currently have is a very dangerous force and needs to be removed as soon as possible. So hopefully,
I was just going to say, with Trump, for me, I'm fine with people being conservative.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have that right to believe what we want to believe and what policies work for our life. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we get to a point where it's like, it's not about policies anymore. It's about character. And no human life is above a policy, in my opinion. Like to model racism, sexism is unacceptable. And I feel like equality is greater than like a bill, or like an economic, like some type of financial relief of some sort. You can't put a price on my life. I can't put a price on your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really coming down to character. And let's be fair, Tom, we haven't talked about this, but the judge, Trump has the potential to appoint another judge.
Oh yeah.
And that's a huge deal. And if we would have a pretty conservative Supreme Court, and those are lifetime appointments, that's a big deal.
Oh
and
yeah, not to mention stacking the courts right underneath the Supreme Court, where they're basically the feeder system into the Supreme Court. I mean, he's already made a lot of changes that will have potentially decades of impact, and I don't want to double that. And then, of course, I'm not impressed by his team either. So like hopefully we move up in the voter participation rankings in 2020, because golly, if we get this guy for another 4 years.
I'm nervous about it, because with COVID and stuff, we don't even know what their strategy is to make sure that every vote gets cast, like how they're going to cast votes. Like I don't even know how clear it is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, nothing would surprise me now in this sort of crazy world we're in.
Do you think Trump and Biden are going to debate? Do you think they'll have a debate?
Oh, I would. Yeah, I think they will have to.
Okay, because I've been wondering about that, and I haven't heard anything about a Trump debate.
I mean, it would be unprecedented for them not to have a debate. And furthermore, I think Trump will want one, because I think he thinks he could do a number on Biden. And frankly, Biden may not be the gladiator, the ultimate fighter for debates.
I kind of want the debate to happen, like a few of them. It just seems like weird that no one's talking about that at all.
I might be more interested in watching the VP debate. I think that'll be more there might be more fireworks there.
Who do you want to take as VP? Like, obviously, he's choosing a Black female.
Yeah, I mean, who do I want Biden to pick? I don't know. The first name that came to mind was Kamala Harris. I think. I know there was a lot of excitement around Stacey Abrams, but she seems to have moved off. And then there's this woman who is the police commissioner in Orlando. She seems okay as well. I mean, but the thing is, like, our system has not built a great bench of African American political leaders, and certainly not female African American candidates. Like, to kind of have the pool of candidates that you would want, you would need decades of progress in Congress which is great that you're running. So you're part of the solution. But you'd want a lot of governors, like Black female governors, and we don't have a lot to kind of draw from.
Yeah.
So I would probably say Kamala Harris might be fine. I don't know. I don't have a VP that I'm super excited about. Obviously, Andrew Yang was my first choice.
Mine too.
I think 2024 is just going to be a big reset. I do not buy the argument that Biden's VP will automatically become the 2024 nominee. I don't buy that. I think it's going to be an open game.
I think so too. Yeah. I think 2024 is going to be a huge deal. It's going to be, especially if Trump gets reelected. It's going to be.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's going to be insane.
It'll be really interesting. Like, the whole Republican Party, I wonder how they're going to deal with the post-Trump world. Like, will they go back to kind of rationalism, or will they just say, no, we're the party of Trump? He's going to be like their Reagan, and for many, many, decades still.
I'm like, let's not.
Right. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but, no, I can. It's good. I think we're living in such unique times, and everything's up for grabs. Come 2024, in the event that Trump gets reelected. But I think Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump combo is deadly. I think that is a very, very, very dangerous combo for another 4 years. And if I had to pick between getting one or the other out, I'd probably say Mitch McConnell out.
Oh, interesting. You'd rather have Trump in the White House and some new potential Senate majority leader on the Republican side than Biden in the White House and McConnell still there?
I think McConnell is he knows how to maneuver, and I think he kind of controls Trump in a lot of ways, because we know what Trump's capable of. We know, like, he doesn't really know what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. I think McConnell is very, very strategic, very I'll say this. I'm going to weigh my words. He uses his intelligence for evil.
Yeah, he's super calculated, and he's got a master plan. And I guess the question is, which is more dangerous to the country? Like, this pretty callous, calculated, plotting McConnell, or this very not well, kind of narcissistic, but also incredibly insecure and erratic Trump. And I don't know, man. As much as I don't like McConnell, I just feel Trump is a ticking time bomb.
You think so? So if you had to pick between the two, if you had to pick one, you would say get rid of Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Over Mitch.
I would, because I think Trump, the White House bully pulpit, has such influence over American culture and perceptions. I mean, I see these kids that are at Trump rallies, and I remember watching them chant, like, lock her up, like raising little misogynists, and I was like, wow, this man is making it cool to be hateful, making it cool to be dismissive, making it American to always demonize and consider like another party completely, you know, kind of subversive. And as much as I don't agree with Republicans and even Trump voters, I don't think they're subversive. I think they're angry. They have a lot of reasons to be angry, and I think they were sold a bill of goods, and now they kind of feel like they're kind of pot committed to this guy. But I don't think they're subhuman. But I feel like, I mean, I know I have MAGA people in my family, and they talk about Democrats like they are, you know, living in caves and like lurking around in the darkness kind of thing. And it's like, come on, man, like we're all Americans here.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking for a while, Aarika. I would be remiss if I did not get your thoughts on the relationship between the Asian American community and the African American community. So let's put the white community aside just for a moment, because, you know, there is tension there. And I think with COVID, there's been tension. You referred to some of those videos that you saw. I've seen them too. I've grown up in an Asian American household with older generations that definitely, you know, had pretty narrow and in my opinion, uninformed views of you know, Black culture. How do you think, like, how do we make that better? Because it's like, I feel like groups are turning on each other when we all need each other to move forward as a country.
Yeah, it is. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was in Crenshaw, you know, a lot of the Asian Yang Gang supporters came out to canvass with me. And it went like, it was very uncomfortable because people got really upset. They were like, why are they here? This is our area. And it was like this territory. And I wasn't expecting that. Like I'm thinking, oh, we're just gonna canvass, you know, because Crenshaw's been so welcome. They love Andrew over there. And but when you pull back the layers, like when I was having the conversation, it came down to this: gentrification and them losing their businesses and they're in an area that means a lot to them. And I feel like if we can find a way to help Black business owners thrive and stop gentrification, I think that would that would heal a lot. You know, I feel like because it wouldn't be replacing, it would be adding. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And so I think that's where we have to begin with rebuilding, is looking at we don't need to be in competition with one another. We need to uplift one another. And I think if we can start from the business front, that would go a long, long way. Because basically what the issue is for some people is that they're just starting businesses in these areas, pushing them out, and now they're left to not have anything. And, you know, everyone has a place to belong, right? And so I feel like we have to find a way for Black wealth and Black businesses to thrive. And so they're not pushed out of their neighborhoods.
Totally. And that's why, I mean, I happen to, you probably share some of this. I have to believe that a universal basic income would have a massive impact on Black entrepreneurship, small business starts, just, you know, kind of empowerment of areas and neighborhoods that may not have had a lot of new business formation in a long time, or certainly not from Black entrepreneurs.
It's funny though too, because when, like, we have a lot of the same problems. And so you would think that we would be able to really connect and, you know, work together more, you know, more closely. And so that's what is the interesting part about the dynamic between, you know, the Asian and Black community, is that we have a lot of shared experiences. It's not like it's like like I would say the obviously Asians didn't have slavery, right? But discrimination, racism, prejudice, all that kind of stuff, we that's common ground. Like that we connect emotionally on that, on what that feels like. So to me, it doesn't make sense for us to even consider being at war with one another. And obviously I have Asian and a Black mom and dad. So obviously I feel like that's weird anyway. But I know that they had struggles though in their relationship. Believe me, my parents dealt with a lot of stuff being a biracial couple, so
Totally, yeah.
so I feel like we need to find a way to support more Black businesses. I think, I don't know. I just feel it's just such a waste of time to hate or be. I just feel like it's a waste of time to just kind of like not like someone because of a skin tone or skin color or like I just feel like the time could be used in other more productive ways. And so I would like to see the Asian and Black community to have more dialogue and more common ground and find ways to collaborate. Like what we're doing right now, we're collaborating, right? So I think that's what we need to do in order to move forward.
Well, maybe that is another benefit of the Yang Gang, that it brings groups together that maybe have not worked together as much as they could have. But certainly, I think there's a ton of opportunity. I was just talking to my kids the other day about, we're starting to talk about race because you can't not talk about it and watch the news. And I want them to be aware of what's going on in the world. And, I was telling them like, hey, Chinese Americans were employed to build a lot of the railroad in the US, being paid a fraction of what the white workers were being paid, not being allowed to live in the white communities, not being allowed to marry or own property. And once the railroad was finished, there was a Chinese Exclusion Act. So, it is not just Juneteenth. Like a lot of different groups have been oppressed. And if you don't stand up for all groups that have been kind of mistreated, then you're next,
The humanity, like, have you seen the movie? I think you did because I watched your channel. You mentioned it, but American Factory on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
that is that documentary is so telling. And I loved how it wasn't a Black man, it was a white guy though, but he was like, I look at him like my brother, like he helps me. I feel like that when we have diverse workplaces and we're forced to work together, then we get to know one another, and it becomes about the person, not about the skin color. And that's why making sure like the workplace is diverse, and like when you brought up, Trump's administration, right? It's not very diverse at all. So you're not going to be able to have the opportunity to even learn or educate yourself or have empathy. And so that documentary, I highly recommend people watch it. American Factory. It was produced by Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. And I think I forget the other two people. I should know their names.
It's an amazing documentary, and also makes you wonder about and we'll have to talk about this another time when you're back on the show. But like I was struck by the work conditions for those Chinese workers in mainland China.
Right?
And like the mother that's like, yeah, I see my kids every few months. I'm like, whoa, like I don't want to compete with that.
Absolutely insane. So again, it goes back to like there's so much more common ground than there are differences.
Yeah.
We need to just get over it and move and just find a way to exist together, because you're my neighbor, I'm your neighbor. We're living in this society together. But I know we gotta run. I really appreciate you having me on your channel. It means a lot to me, and your support and just the dialogue. I do not take it for granted. I really don't.
I'm privileged to have you on the channel. It's a great honor to have this dialogue and to have a conversation. And I am genuinely very, very excited about your candidacy. I love that you're playing the long game and you're a couple years out, which is fantastic. And I really hope everybody watching this will strongly consider going to aarikaforcongress.com. By the time, if you're seeing this on replay, the sites should be up. And if it's not up yet, bookmark it and visit it in a few days, because it will be. And consider pitching in, volunteering, donating, canvassing, whatever you can do. We need more Yang Gang in the Congress. And if I had to put together like a fantasy league, I would draft you very high in the draft.
Can I ask you a question? Why would you do that?
I think there's a few reasons. One is the energy, and this is a medium, and this is a world where people make decisions on who they're going to support. With not just, I wish they would look at policies, but they don't always do that. And it's like, well, who do you like? Who do you feel like a connection with? So I think within a few seconds, people I think who don't know you will have a very positive feeling for you. Two, it sounds like the guy you're going against has been around for a long time, and people I think are ready for change and new ideas. Three, I can feel the energy from the Yang Gang, and the Yang Gang don't mess around, and we're only getting stronger every year. So in 2 years, forget about it, man. It's going to be a force.
Andrew's running too.
Yes. So you'll have sort of that kind of jet stream to kind of fly with. And then lastly, I think a lot of us are eager to see more diversity in Congress. And but a lot of us have been waiting. We talked about Kamala Harris, we talked about Stacey Abrams, and I'm aware of them. I think they're doing good things. I haven't found one that haven't found a connection in the way that we have tonight. As an example. And so I think for all those reasons, and the timing is right, and America needs new ideas, fresh energy, an educator's perspective, multicultural, like if you were to design the ultimate congressional candidate, you may come up with Aarika Samone Rhodes.
Thank you. I always like to know why people, because sometimes people just say things and be like, oh yeah, but I like to know why people feel what they feel, why they think what they think. So thank you for saying that. And we are here for the long game, Tom. And thank you for having this channel. Everyone, please subscribe, become a member of his channel. This is a very important this channel was huge for us as Yang Gang members, because you always had the data, you always had where we are in the polls. I was literally like, oh my god, I have to check where we go to Tom's thing. And you're such a vital part of the movement, and we don't take it for granted. It doesn't go unnoticed. Everyone really, really, really should subscribe to this channel and be a member and support it, because it's so incredibly important. I know Andrew feels that this channel is really, really important. He's been on 3 times. 3 times, right?
Yeah. We've been blessed to have him visit the Nerd Zone. I thank you for saying all those kind things about the channel. And yeah, I love what we're doing, and I love that there are some people who appreciate the kinds of content that we're putting out there. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as there's an audience for it. And we're not the biggest channel in the world, but I think we have we're serving a very specific purpose, and it's data and conversations, and those are my 2 favorite things.
Yeah, thank you. And you raised a lot of money, with your link, you would do the link and the
right.
channel.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. You really did help the movement. And so thank you so much for all that you do, your work and your consistency. You're very consistent. So thank you.
Well, we're just getting started, right, Aarika? Let's keep this going. Until maybe when we pass UBI, I'll take a little sabbatical. But until we pass it, we'll have to keep fighting.
Sounds good.
All right. With that, we'll say goodbye, nerds. All right.